In today's episode of the Freedom Focused Photography Podcast, we are talking with Melissa Arlena all about her secret marketing strategy that has worked incredibly well for her business. Now, it's something you've heard of, it's something you're likely not doing, and it's something that can pay dividends in your business for years to come. So stay tuned. I'm Nicole Begley, a zoological animal trainer turned pet and family photographer. Back in 2010, I embarked on my own adventure in photography, transforming a bootstrapping startup into a thriving six-figure business by 2012. Since then, my mission has been to empower photographers like you, sharing the knowledge and strategies that have helped me help thousands of photographers build their own profitable businesses. I believe that achieving $2,000 to $3,000 sales is your fastest route to six-figure businesses, that any technically proficient photographer can consistently hit four-figure sales, and no matter if you want photography to be your full-time passion or a part-time pursuit, profitability is possible. If you're a portrait photographer aspiring to craft a business that aligns perfectly with the life you envision, then you're in exactly the right place. With over 350,000 downloads, welcome to the Freedom Focused Photography Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Freedom Focused Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today we have a special guest, Melissa Arlena from Charlottesville, Virginia. She is a photographer and also an SEO expert, and we're excited to have you on the podcast. So welcome, Melissa.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my goodness, of course. So before we get into like SEO and stuff like that, why don't you tell people a little bit about your photography business and like how you got into this whole photography thing?
Yeah. So I've had my business for about 16 years now. I spent the first 10 years doing weddings and then shifted over to like lifestyle and really narrowed in on newborn and stuff like that. I'm a very typical case of when I shot weddings, I didn't have kids. And then when I had kids and they started heading off to kindergarten, I was like, whoa. I can't be gone on weekends. Like I'm never going to see, my firstborn. I'm like, I'm not going to see my baby. So that was where I was like, all right, it's time to make the switch and stuff. And then I've used SEO the whole time because before I did photography, I was in IT for 10 years. And so I think SEO has always kind of fascinated me because it's kind of scratching that IT itch. And when I started my business, I was just like everybody else. I'm like, how do I get in front of people? And so then I started hearing about SEO, and then I was like, all right, I'm all in. Like whatever gets me in front of clients and gets me booked, like let's do this.
I love it.
And so I was telling somebody earlier today that I don't have that typical photographer, like how I got into my business story of like, oh, I photographed my kids and then my friends' kids and then people hired me. I do have that for SEO. Like I did my SEO, then I helped friends with theirs, and then other people wanted to hire me.
Yeah.
But when it came to like my photography business and like why I even started with that, why I left IT, I felt like I was becoming the old Office Space movie of like people freaking out on the printer. And I remember like slamming my keyboard to make a point to someone. And I thought, oh, you've gone too far. Like we're done with this. This is so, and I had been doing photography forever, just personally, like taking college courses and stuff. And I was getting married around that time, and I discovered the world of wedding photography. And it was not anything like my college courses. It was pretty and like light and airy and just beautiful, And so I was my IT contract was up, and I was like, all right, well, let's just give this a shot.
Nice.
And I did, and went from there, and like, started second shooting and all of that, and then built up my own clientele and stuff, and just kept rolling from there.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny. It's funny too that there's so many different niches that all of us can love and explore. Like weddings is one that I will not touch with a 10-foot pole. I love being at a wedding, and there's so many wedding photographers that I see their work and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is absolutely stunning and beautiful. And I could see how it could be really fun. But for me, I like freedom of my time is like my number one. And the fact that you book weddings so far in advance and giving up those weekends, I was just like, oh no, that will not fit. And I did do a very short stint as a newborn photographer after I had kids. I'm like, oh, because I left, I was in the zoo field, animal trainer, and then I became a photographer. And this was 2010. So pet photography was not a thing then.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'll photograph families. I had a 3-year-old and a newborn at the time. And so I started doing that, and I liked my families, especially, toddler and up. And and I always wanted to add in the pets, but it was never really a thing then until like
Oh, okay.
2015. I was like, all right, oh no, we can just do all pets here. So that's when I made that shift. But I did newborns for a hot minute, like a couple of them, and I'm like, oh, this is not my jam. Which is
Well, it's
just
funny.
so funny.
I love having pets in sessions and stuff. And
Yeah.
so even when I was doing weddings, like whether it was engagement or if they wanted to have their dog in the wedding, I was like all for it. And then even now with newborns and stuff, I always tell the parents when they message me and they're like, "Oh, we want to include, our furry family members." I'm like, "Great, that's awesome." And then I've learned about dogs and I've learned about cats on that. And I have dogs and cats.
Yeah.
But I always tell them, I'm like, if you have cats, they're just going to kind of show up. Like, unless they're really scared, they're just going to kind of show up. They're going to sniff around. Like, I catch them in the nursery. Sometimes we'll sit baby on a rug and then we'll all sit back and wait. And eventually the cat's like, what's going on in there? And we'll like walk up to the baby and I'm ready. I get the shot. I'm like, so cats are one, and then anytime people are just going to pick up the cat and hold it in a picture, that cat's going to be pissed off. Like, that's just... I'm like, so, we'll get that if we have to. Yeah. And then for dogs, I'm always telling them when I'm like, let me meet your dog and then I'll tell you what we're going to do. Because if it's an older, really chill, calm dog who's like, whatever, we can do a shot on the bed with the dog and the baby next to each other. And like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. But if you've got a 2-year-old golden who's like running all over the house, I'm like, no, we're going to put the baby in the crib where it's behind bars and safe. And then I always tell the parents, I was like, we're going to stick a treat. So it looks like the dog sniffing the baby. And then I'll just Photoshop out the treat. And so many parents are like, I wondered how you did those shots. It's so cute. And I was like, oh, it is totally staged, but it looks adorable. As long as I can like hide the treat, like we're good. Yeah. And then you've got baby and the pup, because our newborn session, we had our dogs in it. All of our newborn sessions have had our dogs in them. So I get why people want them in the session and I want them to have that. And I think sometimes that helps me because I've had people like actually find me from searching for like newborn photos with pets. And like I came up in search results from like a blog post kind of thing. So
that's
I'm like,
awesome.
And I know that if someone's searching newborn photos with pets and they find me and we're in the same area, like they're going to hire me. Like that's a no-brainer at that point because I'm exactly what they're looking for.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I will say this until the cows come home for all my pet photographers out there that, there's one camp of pet photographers that are like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not doing any families and kids. But there's another side that's like, well, I still kind of like the families and kids too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there is this untapped market for like pet focused family photographers. Yeah. That there's so many family photographers that are, maybe don't really like working with the pets or don't know how, or, kind of take it or leave it. But there's so few out there marketing themselves as like a pet focused, pet friendly family photographer. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You guys, well, and I think out there, do it. Yeah. And blog posts. We're going to talk all about it.
Yeah. And even just showing it. Like that's the big thing of showing it on your website. I think my last maternity session, it was an at-home lifestyle, which was here in August. And I was like, I love you for picking indoor. Like, thank you so much. And they had 2 dogs. And when I delivered the gallery, I was like, okay, a third of your gallery might be pictures of your dogs, just so you know.
I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
I know. I was like, they were so cute. I just, but that's their babies right now. So they're totally good with it. That's why they wanted an at-home session. So I could totally get by with that. If it was a family session and it wasn't focused on the dog and I delivered like half the gallery of the dog, they probably would have been like, what's going on here? But you got to feel out and know your client.
I love it. Awesome. All right. So we're going off on tangents here, but that's okay because that's what we do, especially when they relate to dogs. So when you switch then from weddings to newborns, how did you make that shift marketing your business? Was it mostly SEO driven or did you do other things in addition to that? What did that look like?
No, it was mostly SEO driven and it was a hot mess. Like I actually at one point had to get a part-time job because like I wasn't taking weddings anymore and I just knew I didn't want to do weddings. I wanted to do babies. And so I just switched. And honestly, it takes about 18 months for your SEO efforts to really set in and grow. So like I always tell people, you're planting the seeds now for something down the line that's gonna help you. I have my top blog posts right now are ones I wrote 4 years ago during COVID. And they are my top performing, top sending stuff blog posts. So, so when I made that switch to weddings, I was solid on weddings. I knew SEO for weddings. I knew what I needed to do. There really wasn't much education out there for portrait photographers. It was all geared towards weddings. So I was kind of blindly figuring it out. And then, so I got all my seeds planted. And then while I was waiting, it was like, all right, well, I need a paycheck. So, so had to get a job. Which I actually worked in marketing for a jewelry store. So like I was able to parlay that what I learned as a small business owner and use that for somebody else and kind of keep continuing that education. And then once I got it, like, okay, hey, now, and my husband was like, you really need to quit the jewelry store because like you're hemming yourself in on what photo sessions you can take because you've got this other job. And so, it had taken off at that point, but I knew what worked. And so then, we moved twice in 2 years. So we moved from Virginia to South Florida and then back to Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So, because I didn't like Florida.
Yeah.
So if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We came back to Virginia, but we're in a whole different area. So my marketing, I put what I learned from switching from weddings to newborns, I then put that in play to move down to Miami. And I kind of refined it and figured out what I needed to do. So then when we moved back up here to Charlottesville, it's a whole different area. Like I was able to just put that in, do everything I knew I needed to do, and it was good. And I have a friend, she's military. She's my podcast co-host. She moves every 3 years. And so I've been able to help her with like what she needs to do on her SEO. And she would help me on the other parts of like moving your business and stuff. And so, it's just learning all of that stuff and then figuring it out and getting that plan. It was messy at first, but then now it's like refined. Now I get it. Now I know what I need to do, but I don't plan to move again. So there's that.
Well, that's good. That's good. Is there like, because there's a lot of people out here that moved. I moved markets too. And is there like a time frame? Would you start like 18 months before if you're starting to move, or would you?
I wouldn't start 18 months. I recommend like 6 months, which really a lot of people are like, that seems so early. I'm going to lose all my clients, like blah, blah, blah. You would be surprised how long you will stay in the rankings for your old location while you're targeting your new location.
Well, and I found when I moved too, as soon as I sent out like, hey, this is my last summer taking bookings, I'm moving. It was like, oh, well, that was the easiest way to fill my calendar ever.
Yep. Exactly. I know Allison and I had an episode, we talked about that I'm like, that's really what you need to do is go back to your past list and you will book out your calendar when you tell people you're leaving. Like all of a sudden everybody wants to book with you before you go. So that really helps because then you can go ahead and say, hey, I'm not a Miami photographer anymore. I'm a Charlottesville photographer on my website, but I've filled my calendar with all the Miami people before I left. But what I found too is that 6 months after we moved, if you looked up Miami newborn photographer, I was number 2 and it said Charlottesville photographer. So it was like, dude, that's not even my keyword anymore, but I was still in the results. I was getting, I think this year it's died down, but 25% of my inquiries this year have been for Miami still.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And I was telling a friend, I was like, gee, good Lord. Like, it's kind of a bummer to be like, I'm unavailable. Here's the list. I'm unavailable. Here's the list,
Yeah, that's crazy.
But and it was probably a lot higher. I'll have to look at what it was last year. It was definitely a lot higher. And every time, I think at this point now, I've finally gone back through all of the old blog posts I had done down in Miami and taken Miami out, like just gotten the keyword out or drafted the post if it wasn't something that I needed anymore. But I mean, I just had an inquiry last week for a newborn session in Miami and I was like, no. So
if you want to come to Charlottesville, I can help you here.
But that shows that power of your blogging and stuff like that it hangs around forever.
Yeah. There's a couple people that maybe do 2 markets. So maybe they live up north in the summertime, but maybe they spend time in like Phoenix or somewhere in the wintertime. What do you recommend for them to try to keyword 2 cities, but on one site?
So that can be harder when they're farther away. Like for me here, I target Richmond and I target Charlottesville, and they're about an hour apart. So that's not too bad. But when you're targeting like 2 very different locations, it is going to be harder. It's not impossible because like I did a senior session for my niece in Charleston and I've gotten inquiries from that blog post for seniors in Charleston. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not even down there. Like,
right.
So you could still create, I would have, whatever your main location is, that's going to be the spot for your homepage, your portfolio pages, all of that kind of stuff. And then let's say you just do families at the beach in like 30A or something, when you go down for the summer. Well, then you would have a separate page that would be like, whatever your 30A family photographer or beach photographer or whatever. And then that page, you just really want to be specific on that page that page is geared towards 30A. You're talking about locations that are in 30A, maybe restaurants, maybe beaches, maybe places to shop. Like you really want that to almost be like this sounds horrible because people already hate blogging. And then when I bring up research papers, they're like, wow, you just made that sound really fun. But you want to think about that page as like a research paper on 30A. Like you've got to prove to Google, about it. You didn't just throw your keyword on the page and be like, yeah, you're going to rank me there. Google's like, no, you got to work harder than that for that spot. So that's what I would recommend, is just having a separate page that targets, your keyword for that location and stuff like that.
I would imagine too, with the rise of AI and the amount of just like crappy content that people can put up quickly, that Google is starting to figure out and reward those of us that actually take some more time to actually write and research and create more involved things like that. Is that correct?
No, I fully believe that. I think that as we keep going and Google keeps refining their stuff, that they're going, that stuff that is written by us, and really has like a storytelling aspect to it. That's a big thing with blog posts, is I tell people, I'm like, you don't want to just ask ChatGPT to write a blog post for you, because they learned from the internet. So you could be writing a post that their learning was off of my post, and now they're regenerating some of what I wrote into your post, so then you could feel a little bit like, oh, am I stealing somebody else's copy? But it also may not sound like you. Like my clients may be very different than yours. So I want you to use AI to help you research stuff, but not write it for you. And then be personable and tell a story. Like if you meet someone and you're talking about a topic, you're going to tell a story about something about you. I was talking to a mom last night I'd never talked to at jiu-jitsu with my kids. And basically she and I are trading life stories back and forth and like bonding over it. Like that's what's going to get you clients who are interested and who want to read your blog posts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually found AI is really good for brainstorming. So brainstorming different potential topics. I've also used it a lot for brainstorming stories, because I think a lot of times we forget our own stories.
Yeah.
So I might say like, help me think of stories I might have that relate to this situation. And I'll be like, what about a time that X, Y, Z? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good one. And then you can go from there.
No, that's a great way. I love using it for brainstorming. I've when we were moving down to Miami, I didn't know anything about Miami. I knew nothing about it. And so I was writing a post. I just basically looked at like, what was my most popular post in Northern Virginia, because I want to rewrite that for Miami. And it was about like where to shop for maternity clothes, because I do motherhood photography. And I'm like, I don't know what maternity stores there were in Miami. So I'm like Googling maternity shops, maternity stores. I'm clicking on all these different things. I'm researching everything. Now, if I were to do that, I would ask AI which shops sell maternity clothes in Miami, and then I would still verify everything. But now I have a list in 5 seconds with like addresses, phone numbers, websites, like a little blurb. And then I can go through, and I would still do the same thing of like actually calling someone, if it's not, I know motherhood maternity is not around, but if it's not like motherhood maternity, that's it, and it's a consignment shop, I would pick it up the phone like, hey, do you guys sell maternity clothes? Just to verify. And I did that then. So I would do that again now. But it's just so much easier on the research side of things. I just did a post for fall activities in Charlottesville. And I mean, there's a ton of them out here with all the wineries and breweries. And it gave me dates. It gave me like themes. It gave me addresses, websites, and I like phone numbers. So that stuff I will copy and paste, like the dates and the phone numbers and the addresses, like 100% I'll copy and paste. But again, I was looking for like pumpkin patches, and it mentioned that this one place where people go to pick apples has where you can pick your pumpkins. Well, when I went out to their website, no, they have pre-picked pumpkins, but they don't have a pumpkin patch. And I'm like, see, AI totally was like, walk down the pumpkin field and pick the perfect pumpkin for you. And I'm like, that's not what was going on there. Like, so use it for research, use it for brainstorming, but don't let it write your content for you 100%.
Yeah. Trust but verify. We're going back to the Cold War here. Trust and verify.
I know. I was saying that earlier today, but then I was like, I almost feel like drop trust off there, because I feel like I don't trust AI. So I'm just like verify.
I love it. Oh, it's so funny. So it sounds like getting together kind of like lists or gathering information tends to be really popular. What are some, ideas for blogging? Because I know when I say blogging, I think 95% of the people listening to this are going to be like, okay, so I posted a session and say this dog Fluffy was at this park and we had fun.
Yeah. No, those are the worst posts. Nobody wants to read those posts. Yeah. I call those session shares, and nobody cares about session shares.
Yeah. Except maybe the person, but they're probably getting the watermark digital files at least of what they ordered. So they're just going to share those anyway.
Right. Yeah. Now with social media, like they don't even go out to the blog post anymore. No, I would say for starters, the easiest thing to do is start with your FAQs. So when you've got your FAQs, depending on what they are, like I know for some of mine, like are dogs included in can my dog be in a newborn session? And then I'm going to say, yes, check out this article for tips and examples of how we include your dog. And then that goes to a blog post. So that's the easiest way, is to just flesh out your FAQs. Because those are going to be most helpful for your clients, in the sense of when somebody is booking and has a question, you can just send them a blog post and send that over, kind of thing. And then the next thing you want to do is to get into the mind of your ideal client. So like if we were to pick on your dog and dog pet photographers, that kind of thing, think about like I think back to when I was like 21 with my puppy, and like how much I loved her, and she was my best friend and went everywhere with me. I was like, what restaurants can I take her to? What are the best beaches where I can walk her around and I don't have to worry about getting yelled at, you're in the wrong hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Where are the groomers that I can take her to, or what groomers will come to me? That kind of thing. And you want to keep that specific to your local town, kind of thing. So it needs to be like pet-friendly restaurants in whatever your city is probably a pretty good keyword to like check out and stuff, and like do the research and see which cities have traffic for that. And then just have that list of stuff. And the idea is that when you're writing these posts, these are posts that then you could use AI to help you create your marketing for it. So now you could say, all right, I did this post on restaurants to take my dog to. Write 5 social, like copy and paste that into ChatGPT, the final written product, and say, create 5 social media captions for me. Create 2 reel scripts for me, where you could basically be saying like, I've got 5 of the top restaurants in DC that you can bring your pooch to. Oh my goodness. You can bring your pooch to for dinner and stuff. And you could just like, you have the script. Now you're just talking to camera. Now you've got a reel. You've got 5 captions. And then like you could go through and say, okay, now reformat this so that I can send it out in an email newsletter, but don't give away all the information, kind of thing. So like where it gives highlights, and now you've created an email. And so now you've put your time and energy into the post, and then everything else you can use AI for, because it's pulling from what you wrote and not just a random give me 5 captions as a pet photographer or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's the other part where you can bring it into play.
I imagine you can reuse a lot of them too. So I'm thinking like the best place for, like fall color hikes in Western North Carolina.
Yep.
With your dog, that are dog friendly.
Yeah.
And so then every fall, like if you made a list as you made them, I'm thinking like a spreadsheet, because I love spreadsheets or Monday boards where it's like seasonal. And so then I can just see all the seasonal ones, and like each, say September, then I would just go double check it and be like, is this information still accurate? Like
exactly.
maybe you have to update it a little bit, but then you can share it again on your email list and your socials. So it can live on and on and on forever.
Yeah. And that's a great point of, don't write a new post.
Yeah.
Go back to that old post. So I always tell people, when you're writing what we call is like evergreen content, you don't want to include a date in the URL. So if it's going to be top fall hikes with dogs near Charlotte, you don't want to say for 2024. Now you could say in the meta description and in the page title 2024, because I've done that before, where sometimes I'm looking for something and I'm like, I want something recent. So I'll put in, the year. So you can put that in there. But don't put in the URL, keep that evergreen. And then the next year you can go back and update it. Now maybe it's 2025 because you verified and you're like, oh wait, this place closed down. This place now doesn't allow dogs anymore. Oh, but these new ones have come into play and blah, blah, blah. And you can put that in there. And then you can reshare it just like you did, like you said, the year before. And this is another area where I tell people, I'm like, don't try to get clients from Facebook, because Facebook groups and stuff like that can be a crapshoot. But you can get clicks from Facebook. You post that in your local community group, and everybody who's got a dog that's young and wants to go for a hike is now clicking on that post. And that's driving up your numbers with Google, because Google's like, oh, wow, she just got a bunch of clicks, and people enjoyed this. They stuck around for a while. And so now they're on your site. And then the other part of that too is that I think as photographers, we're terrible about selling ourselves. And so you'll write that post and you won't mention once on there what a great photo opportunity this could be to like bring a photographer along to capture your day. And that needs to be all over the place. Like you need to have buttons. You need to have talk about that, you do pet photography and stuff like that. And I think that's a big thing where people are like, well, Melissa, I wrote this post, but it's not doing anything. I'm like, well, you never mentioned that you're a photographer in it. Like, I know you showed your photos, which is great. I was like, but you forgot to like tell them, hey, by the way, let's book a session and go to one of these locations. So don't forget that.
Would you work that call to action in, like, if you're doing, like, the best hikes around Western North Carolina,
Mhm.
like, down towards the end, like, these hikes also can make for great photo sessions and come
I
check out, like, a little call to action down there?
I would do
Wow.
it at the end, and I would
Yep.
probably put a button at every other one that says "Learn
Mhm.
more about a pet session" or something like that.
Okay.
I
Yep.
would say because I think we are still too timid, and so we're
Mhm.
like, "I'm just gonna
Mhm.
throw it in at the end. It's right
Yeah.
there. I check that box." And I'm like, "No, no, no. You need to be more in their face, almost
Uh-huh.
like you're scrolling through and you see ads. You kind of block out them, but some of them you pay attention to. But
Yeah.
you've got to be more in their face about like, hey, like book a session." And
Yep.
that's why I like buttons. So I just have a button that's like learn more about a pet session or learn
Yep.
more about a family session. So they can click that and it catches their eye, but it's not so over the top that they're like annoyed by it or
Right,
anything.
right. And I would imagine some people would think, "Oh, I put some buttons in the sidebar," but if you're reading on mobile, which most people probably are, they probably don't even see the sidebar.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the worst ones don't do the little like where you highlight do the hypertext where you like click here to go to our
Mhm.
contact page. Do you
Mhm.
know how hard it is to click on like text on mobile and stuff? No, give them a button. Give them a big
Okay.
old button that like stands out that is super easy to click versus them having to like pinch and zoom to like hit the right part.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we need to make it as easy as possible for people because their attention span is zilch.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're writing a lot of these posts and stuff about like hikes and restaurants and like groomers and dog parks and all of that kind of stuff, you could then put that together in a lead magnet. Like, and these are all blog posts. So you've already written the blog post, you take them up, you bundle them into a lead magnet, and then you drop a link to that lead magnet in each of those posts. Because even though, yes, that information is free, quote
Mhm.
unquote, if they go dig around on your blog, they don't know that you've also got a blog post on restaurants, like
Yep.
unless you link to it. But instead, why not make it a freebie that they have to opt into? And so now you've got their email address and they have a dog and they're in your area because why else are they downloading
Yep,
this?
exactly.
I mean, I do the same thing for maternity and stuff. I had like best birth pros in Miami, and it was
Mhm.
all the articles I had on on doulas, maternity clothes, midwives, prenatal massage, like all these different vendors. And so now I have my ideal client in the top of a funnel.
Mhm.
And so now I can start feeding them like a welcome sequence, like with the dog
Mhm.
and stuff. You can start feeding them like some helpful articles. You could feed them like, hey, when was the last time you had photos with your pup? Or like
Mhm.
tips to get photos with your pup or something
Mhm.
along those lines. And like now you've got this funnel that's bringing them down to become a client. And it started with that blog post.
Oh my gosh. That is 100% just key right there. And to be able to pull people from your website onto your email list. Like we're always talking about how do we get more leads. And this is such a fun kind of, I want to say passive, but it's not passive because there is work.
Yeah.
But, a lot of times, we're busy. I do still strongly believe getting out into community, actually talking to people face to face,
Oh,
letting
yeah.
them know you're a photographer. Like you guys got to still do that for marketing. But to have this working on the background is is so good.
Yeah.
I think the other important point that we're making here is you need to think wider than just photography. Like the
Yes.
things we're talking about here are thinking, what would my target client with the dog be searching for? Nothing to do with photography. Like,
Yep.
I think people get stuck with, like, how to choose a location for your pet session. Well, most people probably aren't doing that, or maybe they already booked with another photographer when they're
Yep.
searching that.
You know
Um,
who reads those posts? Other photographers looking for locations.
yeah, exactly,
Because
exactly.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, so if you like back it up to be like, all right, what does my target client like to do? Are they outdoorsy? Are they
Yeah.
like, or maybe they're like high end shopping, so like where
Mhm.
can I go shopping with my dog? Like who is your target client? What do they like to do? How can you write articles that they would just be searching for?
Yeah.
Um and yeah, oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
mean, it just comes down to like showing up multiple times. I know a friend of mine, she has it where she does Facebook retargeting ads after
Mhm,
that. So after they've landed on her
mhm,
website, now she's retargeting them on Facebook. So like that's another way to keep showing up in front of
mm,
them and stuff. But
mhm,
the other question I will get is a lot of people they'll start writing these posts and then they're like, "Melissa, these posts are bringing in so much traffic and my main keywords are like not ranking very well. I'm not getting as many
mm,
clicks or impressions for those." And I'm like, that's normal because do you know that a lot more people look for dog friendly restaurants than look for
yeah,
pet photographers?
right. Yeah.
That's just how it is. It's the same thing with more people look for date night ideas,
Mhm.
then look for newborn, maternity, or family photographers. It
Yep.
just happens to be that way. But the thing you have to think about with all of these blog posts is all of those clicks you're getting, Google is tracking that. And so when you have a lot of good clicks and people are sticking around on your website, it shows that your website is good and has good quality. And so it's that rising tide lifts all ships. So those
Mhm.
blog posts will help carry your main pages and stuff like that up. I know, like recently I had noticed that for Richmond, I wasn't ranking as high for maternity as I wanted to. And I was like, okay, the page itself is good. Like, I know I don't need to mess with the SEO on the page. But what I do need to do is publish more blog posts that are related to maternity clients and what they're searching for, doulas, midwives, that kind of stuff
Mhm.
for Richmond to help keep establishing. Because I am doing that thing where I'm targeting two cities. And
Mhm.
so I constantly have this balance of, am I leaning too much to Charlottesville? Do I need to lean more to Richmond in my blog posts? And like keeping that so it lifts everything up and improves to Google. I am a local expert, and this is, so show my website.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. This has been just so, so, so good. And just, I think if people can start to understand the importance of this in an awareness way for your market, like everyone always asks me, how do I get to more people to know about me? Like things like this, because all these people are coming, and yes, they're not searching pet photography, but what percentage of those people didn't even know pet photography was a thing?
Yeah.
So they're searching about a hike in North Carolina and they come to your page and like, pet photographer, what? And then they look at your pictures and like, oh my God, these are amazing. And then it starts to plant the seed. Maybe they don't book right then and there, but now they know about you. Maybe you have that lead magnet that they opted into. Now
Mm-hmm.
they're getting emails from you and you're starting to nurture this relationship. And even if they don't get your email, you don't get their email right away, like they've still planted that seed.
Yeah.
And, now they know it's a thing and now they're going to think about it. And then at some point, maybe they're going to search pet photographer, and then hopefully you're towards the top because you're doing all this work and they come to your site and they're like, oh yeah, this was the person. And then they're
Yep.
going to book you. So it's such a long game.
It is. Oh, it's very
Yeah.
much a long game. Like I said, some of my top performing posts are from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, it took a long time to get there and stuff,
Right.
but
Right.
they're there.
Yeah.
And then I do have posts, that are newer that are ranking well too, but it can take a while.
Yeah. The other thing I just realized too from doing these different lists of different businesses, if you did like the best dog trainers and,
Oh, dog trainers. That's a good one. Yeah.
something like that, you could reach out to these trainers,
Yes.
make connections with them, let them know that like, hey, I'm putting this list together. I'm going to include you. Just FYI, here's the link. Just want to let you know that I included you on this. And then like if you built that out and you created that lead magnet that has like the best pet resources in Charlotte, you could probably then give a link or like somehow give that to all these other people to let them know that
Yeah.
you're creating this here and they can send traffic to you
Yep.
and they can all be sharing it.
That is one of the secrets I talk about in my my blogging course is
Yeah.
that of reaching out. And in fact, I had a client that she while her SEO was taking effect and stuff, she reached out to all these midwives and she didn't want to just include them on a list. She
Yeah.
wanted to interview them more. And from that, she established relationships like you talk about so
Uh-huh.
much. And then they started sending her clients. So while
Yeah.
her SEO is just seeds right now,
Uh-huh.
she's bringing in clients because she reached out, and she
Uh-huh.
established that relationship. So yeah, that's huge. And the thing is too, sometimes when you reach out to those, I like pitching it as a guest interview.
Yep.
So they write the blog post for you. That is the secret. You send them like 5 questions and you tell them like, this is all about you, pitch yourself, talk about yourself. And then literally you come in with an intro and you come in with an exit paragraph. And then they did all of the heavy lift for you.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. Yeah, if you wanted to take it to a whole nother level, I used to teach this back in the day too, where to kind of create these little blog highlighting different businesses in your market.
Yeah.
So like you could go and interview them. You could take even a couple images of
Yep.
their facility, of what they're doing, of them, and gift them a couple of those images, use them on your blog. And then you just like make this great relationship and they want to help you out next time because you helped them out. You did something nice for them. It's I mean, it's a win-win.
And a great point there is giving them some images and asking
Mhm.
for a link back to your website. And now
Mhm.
you're getting backlinks from local businesses in your
Mhm.
area. And that's one thing that people always are like, I don't know how to get backlinks. And like,
Mhm.
that's a super easy way to do it is connect with these other vendors, give them photos and ask for the backlink. Just say,
Mhm.
hey, do you mind linking? And, if you have done your keyword research and you've got a keyword for your homepage, hey, here's the keyword for my homepage. Can you link that to my website and put that, and have that on your site? And
Yep.
like, that's a huge like off page SEO that is like a stage 2 that most people don't think about that can be a
Right.
great thing for you to do.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, this has been like ridiculous. What advice do you have for people that maybe are still thinking like blogging's too much work?
It's just you got to get started with it. Getting like I'll put together a freebie for you guys on some topic ideas to get that started. And then like we do have a blogging club. I will say it doesn't have as much for pet photographers. It's
Yeah,
definitely more of like family and maternity newborn kind of thing. But this has given me some ideas of things to do with like some blog posts for that. So I've got some ideas in my head. But like with the blogging club, the way we set it up is you get 2 blog post templates each month.
uh-huh.
And then within that template, I'm telling you what to write, and there's a video of me walking you through it. So, like let's say the topic is dog friendly restaurants. I'm going to walk you through like what needs to go in your intro paragraph. How does it need to be formatted for SEO as you put these restaurants and stuff in? What does all that need to look like? What's your closing paragraph? All of that kind of stuff. And then I give examples like where I've done posts so you can see that.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten some really great feedback about that because it gets you past that blinky cursor. It's
Uh-huh.
not Chat GPT writing it for you. It's me giving you ideas of what needs to go in each section.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's like that prompt, like you were saying, of like asking Chat GPT to like help prompt you for a story. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing that in those posts and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of those can be reused for different things. Like I do try to make them where they're generic enough where you can swap out genres, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But I am thinking about like what are some good ones? Because even like dog friendly restaurants might be fun for like families, like family
Mhm.
photographer too, and stuff like that that
Mhm.
love their pets.
Yeah,
Or like ours.
absolutely.
Ours are always with us, so it's like okay, where can we take them that they could actually sit at the table with us, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm even thinking like, what do you do with your dog when you're on vacation? Like, where are some
yeah.
great places that you trust locally if you're going to travel? And just so many
Yeah, because
things.
you could hit an easy one like Outer Banks and then just look for all of the different. Because I saw one when we were down there. There was one that was like, let your canine be on vacation while you're on vacation kind of
Yeah.
thing and stuff. I mean, we brought my mom. So whenever we left the house, she was there with them. I didn't have to worry about it. But, if you're like, oh, I got a dog with separation anxiety and I don't want to leave them in a beach
Yeah.
house that I don't own alone, maybe it's like different places where they could just go for the day and you put
Yeah.
that list
Uh-huh.
together. And it's a big area, kind of thing. So,
Oh my gosh, my head is spinning. Even like so many people that maybe live in vacation areas.
yeah.
Gosh, this is huge if you're trying to target like a tourist
Yes.
type
Yeah.
market. Um, yeah, there's so many possibilities.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, Melissa, this has been so good. One of the best. This is a top 10 podcast I think that we've ever had, and we've
Oh,
had
good.
like over 250 episodes. So well done.
Well, I always hear from people that I tell people, I'm like, I don't know how to gatekeep on stuff. Like, I just, as the ideas flow, I'm like, here you go, like putting them out there.
Well, it's just
And
the
yeah.
beginning. I'm sure there's so many more just incredible, yeah, how-tos in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, let people know where they can find you and where they can learn more about how you can help them.
Yeah, so our website is Picture Perfect Rankings. So you can go out there and find all of our services. We offer everything from done for you to group coaching. We've got the blogging club. We've got courses on keyword research, courses on blogging, just in general. So yeah, we've got like all the things.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Go
And
check it
then,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
follow us on Instagram because our Instagram is new. I only have like 38 followers. So just give us a like. We're trying. But Instagram's not my thing. SEO is
Yeah,
my thing. So that's
exactly.
where we're
Yeah.
at.
Well, there's so many photographers. I'm like, do I have to do Instagram?
Nope.
No, you don't. If you do SEO, you need to do something. So
Yeah.
you need to choose something to market your business with.
Yeah. 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 I will say my photography side does have more followers than that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah,
This
the
is
other
new.
one, that's not, I have a 9 grid up on the other one because I even said, I was like, I don't want to do Instagram. Like, I have a girl, she'll post some reels for me and stuff, but I'm like, I'm not doing posts all the time. We have a 9 grid and that's what hangs out there.
I love it. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right, Melissa, thank you. You guys, yeah, reach out to Melissa, let her know you guys found this super helpful and go check out her programs to help get your blogging in gear. And I'll see you next week.
Thanks so much.